What is going on, everyone? My name is Justin Fensterman, along with Howard Bender, and this is another episode of Fantasy Alarm Sports Talk here on fantasyalarm.com. It's a new week. We've turned the page, and it's time to talk about the DFS main slate for Week 15 of the fantasy football season. Howard Bender, who's with me, his watch list is live. It's out. It's going to be updated throughout the week, Howard, but we must warn the audience first. It's a little bit of a weird week because we've had some weird weeks, but we have a game Thursday, we've got two Saturday, and then we've got the Sunday main slate that we're going to be talking about right here.
Yeah, and that's definitely the important thing to remember. Now, when I do the watch list, I'm putting out for both Saturday and Sunday only because Saturday you'll get a 2-game playbook from me. You'll actually get that on Friday, probably Friday night, and then Saturday morning. While the games are going on, I'll be working on the playbook for Sunday. So, it's interesting because we lose some good games, some good players. Green Bay, no Devontae Adams, no Aaron Rodgers.
That hookup has made me more money than any other hookup all season long, man.
Right. So we lose Mike Davis going up against that soft Green Bay run defense. We lose Josh Allen and the Bills going up against a subpar Denver defense as well. So, we lose that on top of, Cleveland in the nighttime slate. So we lose Nick Chubb and Baker Mayfield and Jarvis Landry, Kareem Hunt. And then on Monday, no Steelers, no Big Ben, no worries about Deontay Johnson getting benched or anything like that. So, it's a tough time of the year, but there's enough good stuff on the main slate that I think we can dive in.
Thank God, because the Houston Texans are sure as hell on that main slate. And we love attacking the Houston Texans, especially when just a couple of weeks ago, the Colts did it so successfully that once again, why not feast on this matchup?
Yeah, it definitely makes sense to explore it. I mean, it's got a high total as well. One of the funny things, though, is Jonathan Taylor actually didn't play in that game. That was his COVID game. So he missed out on getting the opportunity to run against this Houston defense. So that's going to be great to watch Jonathan Taylor do that. You already know that Phillip Rivers has his eye, in certain places. I don't remember. I think Bradley Roby played in that game, and now he's obviously suspended. So it softens up that secondary a little bit. We could see, we know T.Y. Hilton loves to blow up the Texans. Michael Pittman could be an interesting play there. But also on the other side of that field, as much as I love that Colts defense, Fensty, Kiki Kute and Chad Hansen both posted 100-yard games against this strong Colts defense.
Yeah, and it's not looking like we're going to be seeing Randall Cobb anytime soon. So with that, or even for the rest of the season for that matter, that's from the reports that I've seen. So that's what we're looking at the rest of the way with Houston as well, if you want to stack this game for very, very cheap. You don't think T.Y. Hilton is a trap play at this point, do you?
Of course he is.
Come on, bro. I felt it, man. That's why I asked it, dude.
We know it is. It's going to,
I'm going to start him in 2 semifinal lineups, and he's going to put up 3 points in half-point PPR leagues. That's it. I know it, and now it's confirmed you know it.
Well, I mean, the good thing about it is, though, is that, you're thinking seasonal, and that's going to be aggravating, and is it a trap? From a DFS standpoint, listen, he's going to be chalk city. People are going to load him up in cash games. And if you look at his price tag, it's pretty favorable. So, you're getting a guy who, is going to help you save on some salary that, whether he performs or not, he's going to be so chalky that you're going to want to get him into your lineups just to keep pace and just to save a few bucks. Give me all the T.Y. Hilton shares, trap or no trap.
I can't wait for that ride. I'll ride that, though. I will. I mean, 6,800 on FanDuel, but on DraftKings, 5,500. So it's hard to ignore that price point, especially in such a great matchup that he's already done well against. So that right there is why we talk about it a little bit. But it is a bit risky here because it is. I have feelings sometimes.
Did I just make you sad? I feel like I just made you sad, Fence.
You did make me sad. You did make me sad because I you know why? I've taken a lot of heat on T.Y. Hilton because I stayed with them, and then it embarrassed me. And then finally, when he's buried on the bench, a statue, he comes through only for him to have what should be a golden matchup for him. And I'm having these weird feelings that you just made me feel even weirder about. So thanks, Howard. Thanks a lot.
No problem. You can write a letter to the Colts. Make sure that they use some rubber sheets on his bed, because he's going to soil it come Sunday.
Oh, man. And let's just move on before I get any more depressed about this. Let's talk about the Ravens-Jaguars here, because that's another matchup that we can attack here. And from what we saw from that Monday night game with that production, I mean, going and hopefully Lamar Jackson doesn't have to take another big old dump. Literally, we're not talking production. We're talking actual dump and be out of it, because we want as much production as possible if we're going to trust Jackson and pay 82 and 75 for him on the respective sites.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely going to be somebody you're going to have to eyeball there. It's such a soft matchup. I'm going to try and avoid as many poop jokes as possible, but, I don't think I'm going to really be able to. So we'll call this the Muddy Waters Bowl and see what we can do from there. But he's got a great matchup against these Jaguars. He's going to be worth the price of admission. He's going to be able to run on these guys excessively. You like what you see now from J.K. Dobbins. He's getting more carries like some of these other rookie running backs. And Hollywood Brown. Like, we can go back to calling him Hollywood now, I think, because drops are happening, but it's such an easy matchup here against the Jaguars. You got to figure he's going to end up in the end zone again. Like, I've got more confidence in that than I do it being a trap game for TY.
Oh, wow. I mean, I was going to say, do we call him Hollywood Brown because he's about to put on a fictional movie for us, because we can't forget about those drops. But again, we're looking at that price point, and in that 5,500 range. I like that. We were talking a lot about that last week at this time, and I've been looking in that range a little bit more, rather than forcing myself to go full stars and scrubs, but to go to those 4,500 and below to try to throw a dart. And I know, by the way, you have your dartboard on fantasyalarm.com leading into these slates, but 5,500 makes me feel a little bit safer. Yeah. I'm cool with him at 5,600. The other side of the matchup, let me ask you this in GPPs, and maybe this is just a really stupid play, but DJ Chark, who I know is disappointed, Minshew now starting this game, he's 5,000 on DraftKings. It's hard to ignore that price point with the Ravens. They've lost some players along the way. What do you think about that? Do you think people will be more off of Chark for GPPs or on him because of the price point?
No, I think they'll be off of him. I think that's definitely something that they've seen, because he's actually been priced down. He's been, I think, this past week he was probably like 5,500, something close to that range. And I actually used him in a GPP, hoping that we might see a little something from him at low ownership. I think the fact that it has shut down the way it has, the fact that it is coming against the Ravens, I do think that you could get him into your lineup there at that, minimal price and use him for a GPP tournament. Is he my favorite at that price? No, probably not. But for the same token, he is such a talented receiver. He does have a really high ceiling. If he and Minshew just kind of put it together again, and even if it's garbage time, I'll take it.
And maybe this is getting a little too cute, and I've asked you, and I'm not going to call him that name that you always make fun of there. I'm not going to say that what he is, what everyone calls him. But if I want to go a little bit cheaper, want to be a little dirty, you given any confidence whatsoever in Shenault at 3,800 on DraftKings?
What do I call Shenault?
He was the not the Enigma. There was another one. He's pretty much like Inspector Gadget. He's like Gadgety. I forgot. You had a term for him that I know most of the industry.
Oh, the Swiss Army knife?
Yes, the Swiss Army knife.
Laviska Shenault. I mean, listen, I have more confidence in using DJ Chark in a GPP than I do using Laviska Shenault. Guys made out of glass. This last touchdown catch that he had, it was a look what I found touchdown. It skimmed off of a defender's helmet and into his arms. Like, he wasn't even the targeted receiver. just one of those things that nobody's talking about. Everybody's like, oh, Laviska Shenault, he's the Swiss Army knife. He gets all the gadget plays, blah, blah, blah. How many touchdowns, did he have around the whole, look what I found thing? Like, that's, yeah. It's so funny. I used to talk to Phil McConkey of the Giants back in the 80s all the time. And his, and his touchdown in the Super Bowl. And he used to tell that story all the time, but he'd always leave out the part that it was kind of a, ooh, look what I found. Like, it wasn't intended for me, but here it is.
Yes, ricochets. So, and that's something you're right. And that's why watching the games matters so much, because if you just look on the stat sheet, you would think that was intended for him. He's getting open and that's another target. No, you get lucky sometimes. We've seen it. I remember there was a famous one with Brandon Stokely back in the day. Talk about ricochets. That was one of the kings. That was one of the kings of ricochets back in the day. But back in the day, like 10 years ago, like we're old as hell. Let's move on to a team that's pretty much making me seem older in terms of soul, because they crush your soul if you root for them. But that team from the New York, New Jersey area, they haven't forfeited the season just yet, but they have the Rams. And when they're on the main slate, we have to talk about the team that's facing these New York Jets/Planes. And now with the Rams, a couple of guys that you have in your watch list, you have Jared Goff there. Well, I love his price point on DraftKings, especially at 6,300. And you also have Woods and Everett there as well. Everett is the most intriguing one, 3,100 on DraftKings, 5K on FanDuel. Why is Everett in there?
I mean, I'm kind of waffling. The Jets don't handle the tight end very well, but I'm kind of waffling between him and Higbee, because it just seems like, Gerald Everett seems to be running more routes. He seems to be taking more snaps. But yet I always see, every time I'm watching a game with the Rams, I'm seeing Higbee get targets still. So I'm kind of waffling back and forth. But, I mean, as far as Goff goes, I mean, you have to look and see what the Jets have done, to quarterbacks. Last week, quarterbacks don't need to throw a lot on the Jets to be successful. So Russell Wilson, only 206 yards, but it was 4 touchdowns for him. Derek Carr before that was 381 yards and 3 touchdowns against the Jets. The week before that, Fitzpatrick, 257 and 2. So obviously here you have to take a look. Here, Justin Herbert, 366 and 3. If you're not starting the quarterback opposite the New York Jets, then what are you doing? Like, Jared Goff.
Everybody continues, and not everybody. I shouldn't say everybody, because I don't want to represent everybody. A lot of people continue, though, to try to attack them on the ground. And I don't know why. It's like, hello, Big
the dumbest thing ever.
Like, seriously, man. Like, come on. It's not hard. The one thing the Jets can do somewhat decent, even for their low-ass bar that they have, is stop the run a little bit, or at least somewhat contain it. For them, that's okay. That's a win. You have to beat them in the air, and we continue to get questions. Oh, they're playing the Jets. They haven't won it. It's more than the fact that they haven't won games. You have to identify where their weakness is. Teams will continue to throw against them. This Rams team is favored by 17 points. You don't think Jared Goff, if the pass is going well and it's easy as it should be, he's going to continue doing it? Of course he is, especially if Cam Akers isn't dominating the matchup.
Well, and that's the thing, though, because in addition to looking at what the quarterbacks are doing against the Jets, you do have to look and see what the running backs are doing. This last game against Seattle, Carson had like 75 yards and a touchdown. The week before that, it was Devontae Booker, not Josh Jacobs. So that was like 50 yards, but he didn't get into the end zone. Against the Dolphins, again, it was DeAndre Washington, who was like the lead guy there with 49 yards. But so I look at a guy like Akers, similar in the fashion of how I'm going to view like Carson. He'll get you 60, 70, maybe 80 yards in this game. Maybe he'll probably find his way into the end zone. They'll get some goal line work. But if you're thinking that you're getting 120 yards and a touchdown, no, then you're nuts. You got to temper your expectations there and understand that, the Jets they're a top 8 run defense right now. As much as we hate them and we love targeting against them, you have to be sensible there. So I'm probably going to be, kind of soft on Akers when it comes to DFS plays. In seasonal, you have to start them. But in the DFS community, I'd rather pay otherwise than paying for what Akers did last week, with 174 yards.
You don't think McVay is going to pull any kind of shenanigans? I'm having these feelings like I am with T.Y. Hilton with this spot. He's not going to try to pull the okie doke, and here comes Henderson and splitting carries once with Akers, and then a little Malcolm Brown sprinkled in. Do you think that could happen, or has Akers finally proven himself?
I think Akers has proven himself. However, you never know what you're going to see. Like, you never know what McVay could do. That's why, again, in the DFS space, I'm leaving it alone. I'm not as bullish. I'll go after DeAndre Swift, who I think is at a similar price point. I'd rather use him because I know that he is still destined to be that lead back, and Darrell Bevell is not he's an interim coach. So he knows that he needs to focus on the weapons that he could have next year. Let's say if he were to get the job. He won't, but if he could get that job, what he might do. So I think that's really, where it comes down to it. Like, I think Detroit could be looking at Eric Bieniemy as their, next head coach, even though I'm hoping the Jets do that. But, Bieniemy, who's an Andy Reid disciple, if he gets his hands on DeAndre Swift, that could be huge. So if Darrell Bevell keeps that nice relationship with Swift and he, maybe stays on as the offensive coordinator for Bieniemy, maybe that's, kind of helpful there. McVay will just do whatever he wants.
That's what Sean McVay does. Just when we think we're good, it happens again. So that's something to be mindful of, and that's smart strategy for DFS as well. There are other options. For instance, we've talked about value plays. You did mention Detroit taking on the Titans here. How can you not love Derrick Henry? He's going to cost you a pretty penny on both sites for obvious reasons. But Derrick Henry, this guy going to be breaking the slates even at the high price point that he has.
Well, and listen, it's a smash matchup for him, absolutely. So that's kind of what you're looking at as far as lineup construction. You're looking at a guy, you're looking at a pay down for Jared Goff as your quarterback. I had a good conversation with Jeff Manns from Elite Fantasy, because Jeff, when he was with Fantasy Alarm, he was one of the guys who helped show me certain things about, understanding and, football and DFS in that same space. He and I had discussed Mitch Trubisky last week, because I was thinking about Trubisky and I liked what I saw from my research. But I hit him up because I was like, hey, dude, so, it's Trubisky. You're a Bears guy. Am I reading this wrong? And he said, no, you're reading it right. And so, you have to kind of figure out what you're looking at in that sense. So, I'll, pay down for a Jared Goff in this spot, knowing that I'm going to want to pay up for Derrick Henry. And then, obviously then you have to find value somewhere else, because what you're really trying to do for your DFS lineups, you're trying to find a way to get Henry in there because of this smash spot. You're trying to get Travis Kelce in there because the advantage that you have at tight end, using Kelce over whatever other schlub you're going to get. Right? So you have to kind of plan that out. So you're mining for value in certain places. Now, you should be able to pay up for at least one solid wide receiver, but you have to, it's touch and go, because, listen, we're going to want to get Jonathan Taylor in our lineups. We're going to want to get Derrick Henry in our lineups. We're going to want, a lot of these high-end guys, but you can't have them all,
Right. I would like to try to get Derrick Henry and David Montgomery in my lineups.
Sure.
And then build from there. And I never thought I'd be saying that too. But kind of like with the tight end position, as we continue to talk about, running backs, hard to trust a lot of these guys. And all of a sudden, the steady Eddie David Montgomery, who has now upped the production a little bit, steady Eddie, 20 points per week or whatever the last few weeks. Whereas before, people seemed to be turned off by Montgomery going into the season. What did he do? 12 points per week max, low ceiling. But now, this guy has become one of the most trustworthy running backs in fantasy football. Welcome to 2020. So that's going to be something I focus on. I have not put David Montgomery in one DFS lineup all year long. I'm going to be trying to get Henry and Montgomery in there with some of the pay downs that we've spoken about.
Yeah, listen, I don't see an issue with that. I mean, Montgomery has really turned around since Tariq Cohen went down. That was the tipping point for Montgomery. When Tariq Cohen went down, Montgomery then was locked into like 4 or 5 catches per game. And when you're playing in a PPR format like on DraftKings, full point PPR, getting those 4 or 5 catches, that's a big deal. So if he's getting the carries between the tackles, he's getting the carries on the outside zone runs, he's getting the passing down work, it just increases his value that much more. So, yeah, I was all in on Montgomery. I had him in the watch list last week, had him in the playbook, had him in the example lineups. Very bullish on him. And then, yeah, I mean, listen, against Minnesota, this is a really nice spot for him to be. I think I like Jonathan Taylor a little bit more, but Taylor's going to be a little bit more pricey, I think.
Yeah, just a little bit more. That's it. Just a couple of hundred on both sites. And so with that, when you're trying to make a star-studded high-priced running back core, you're going to need some value other spots. We've gone over some of the quarterbacks. Now, some of the wide receivers that you can get where you don't have to pay up for the most expensive player, there are 2 of them right there that I'm seeing on the watch list on fantasyalarm.com. You go to that 49ers-Cowboys matchup. Give me all of the Brandon Ayuk possible. I mean, when you talk about a safe floor, Deebo Samuel hurt again, I'm loving it. I am ready to put a big bet. It hasn't come out yet, but I am ready to put a big old bet down on his reception props if it's under 6.5. 5.5, I'm in. This guy's going to be peppered with targets, 6,300 on DraftKings and 69 on FanDuel. I'll take that if I'm paying up at the running back spot.
Yeah, it should be interesting to watch for Ayuk. I definitely, I like him a lot, and he and Mullins have a great relationship on field. There was some talk from Kyle Shanahan, though, about using C.J. Beathard as his starting quarterback. He would not. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Don't ruin my Ayuk, please.
Right now, I'm the bearer of bad news here, but the last report I saw was that Shanahan wouldn't commit to Mullins being his starter, after the loss to Washington, and now he might turn to C.J. Beathard. I know it. I know you hate it, but there it is.
Well, if you're going to do that, Shanahan, can you at least let Ayuk run? He can run too. Give him a few carries then if you're going to do that, and I'm going to invest in this guy. Seriously. Well, you know what? Since we have now that bit of confusion, let's talk about another lower-priced wide receiver, because for $4,500 on DraftKings, CeeDee Lamb has made the watch list. So looking at the other side of the matchup, how are you feeling about the Dallas side of the ball?
I'm not in love with it, but I think, CeeDee Lamb coming out of the slot has a really nice matchup against San Francisco. They rank in the bottom 5 of the league in DVOA against slot receivers. He happens to be the guy that Andy Dalton targets the most. So while it sucks that you got to rely on Andy Dalton for that kind of money, it's definitely, it's worth a look, especially in Dallas. Like that's, I was hoping to see a little bit more out of him this past week. The touchdowns went to Gallup, they went to Amari Cooper. So, again, I feel like we could be seeing a nice big CeeDee Lamb game just because of this matchup.
So I have not spoken to you about this just yet. I've spoken to some of the other analysts there at the family, fantasyalarm.com, but I haven't asked you about your thoughts on Miles Sanders, especially because there are definitely other running backs that we can't trust. He comes through in what was a horrible matchup for him. Now, once again, in not so great of a matchup, seeing him at 6,900 on DraftKings, I feel like this is almost a playing with fire situation, but that's what you have to do in some of these GPPs in order to win big. Do you think the fire is burning too brightly for us to play with? Is it a bonfire?
No, I don't know. You look at Jalen Hurts and the type of quarterback he is, and they're doing a lot more of the read option, which definitely favors Miles Sanders. Like it definitely favors him. So I feel like, going up against Arizona, it's going to be, the whole feature is going to be Kyler Murray versus Jalen Hurts. And I think people kind of forget a little bit about Miles Sanders. So for a GPP tournament, I would definitely take a look at him as a possibility. I'm probably, more inclined on DraftKings than on FanDuel. But, It's definitely a worthwhile look. It's definitely a worthwhile look.
Worthwhile look because of price point as well.
Yeah.
Kenyon Drake, 5,500. And
I like that. I like Drake this week.
You know what? Look, they're utilizing him a bit more, and 5,500, I like that. You and I talked about that golden range last week, which won me big, by the way. Check is in the mail to you, Howard. It might take a while to get there, the Postal Service, through these crazy blizzards on the East Coast, too. But Kenyon Drake, another running back that if you want to pay down, you want to maybe pay up, spend up for a receiver or what. Let's just say someone in that caliber, Kenyon Drake on DraftKings especially, nice pay down spot at 5,500.
Yeah, real nice pay down spot at 5,500. He had a good game this past week. The Eagles' run defense isn't the be all end all. And here's the kicker: is that you've got Kyler Murray, who, again, another week of not running, another week of is his shoulder still a problem? Is he afraid to take the hit? Is Kingsbury tilting some of the play calling towards more of a traditional use your running back kind of thing in Kenyon Drake? I think it might be. So yeah, for that kind of a cost, for that kind of a pay down, throw that into like your flex spot. Listen, because if you're gonna bargain shop for like one running back, and let's say we pay down, far for a running back, whoever the chalk value play is going to be this week, pair him with Henry, you can still get one of those like mid-tier priced guys into your lineup as a flex play. And yeah, I would say Sanders or Drake qualify. Drake probably even more because you're only paying like $5,000 for it.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of these receivers that we could get for cheap as well. By the way, you mentioned Kiki Cutie before, 5,300 on DraftKings. I like that. This lineup is starting to come together a little bit, guys, because, again, if you want to spend up for those running backs, you don't want to get too cute. Here are some receivers that are cheap as hell that you can grab. T.Y. Hilton right there, 55. Well, we didn't talk about this guy yet. What about anybody from Tampa that you seem to like?
I'll go with Mike Evans again. I know it was a disappointing week this past week. He has such a great matchup. Such a size advantage against these corners. I didn't really understand why the Bucs didn't really take advantage of that too much. I think obviously against Atlanta, everybody's in play. Godwin coming back still from the finger, and Evans is there. Antonio Brown, we'll see.
I almost asked you, and then I stopped short. I'm like, I'm not wasting my time.
I'd rather go with Gronk than Antonio Brown at this point. Like, Brown is really, he's like fallen into that third wide receiver status, and it's not, it's just not becoming.
No, it's not. It's so weird, man. It's very weird to see because we've seen how great this guy can be. Is it Brady, though? Is it Arians? That's something that we're going to have to continue to watch over because when I'm just watching, and especially watching Brady, it's just, and I know that I'm not breaking any news, but just from watching him compared to other years, it's not all together. It's not. When he's missing, he's really missing. And these are throws that, like in the middle of the field, that are completely overshooting his receivers. I don't get it, man.
Well, he spent his entire career in a dink and dunk offense. Like, I know how much you love dink and dunk offenses, Fensty. Right?
You said
the donut offense for dinking and dunking. How about that? That's Brady's bread and butter right there. He was just so used to just connecting with Julian Edelman or Rob Gronkowski on these shorter plays. He wasn't doing these big throws downfield. Arians is like, we want more of these big throws downfield. And I think that's, they're kind of butting heads a little bit right now. I guess it was Arians who made that comment like a week or so ago about Tom Brady doesn't seem to be able to, he seems to be having trouble reading defenses, right? Like, that Brady's like, F you, dude. Look at all my rings that I got. Look at what we did with the Patriots.
Insert GIF.
Right? Exactly. So, I think that they're kind of having some some growing pains with that. And Brady is, he's making those attempts downfield, but he's so not used to doing it. I think that his his ability to gauge where these throws are supposed to be and the timing, for the speed and the field and getting downfield, the distance. I think he is struggling with that.
Yeah, it's been welcome to 2020, the year where it seems like a lot of the guys that we've been making fun of for the last few years coming through, and some of the mainstays not coming through, especially our first-round picks in fantasy. What a year, but hey, we've got our action, and that's what continues our content. Our family grows stronger and stronger every single day. He's Howard Bender. You can catch him on the Fantasy Alarm Show on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio with the GM, Jim Bowden, all week long, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern. You can catch me with Adam Ronis on that same channel for Alarm After Hours tonight, 1 a.m. Eastern. For Bender and Fensty, we always dominate. No other option. We just win.